Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to do Eternal Strand, a game that came out end of January 2025 that I completely forgot I had in my list of to do in editing. So the proposed minimum requirement will be the i5-9400 or Ryzen 5 3350, 8GB of RAM, the GTX 1660 Super, RX5600 XT, or the Intel Arc A580. SSD is required, and all the above settings reflect the game performance at 60 FPS at the lowest settings with upscale from 50% of 1080p without frame gen. That is quite specific. Thank you, Dev. Welcome to Respawn PC. I'm Dunk. Let's game on. Starting off with the AMD side, I have the Ryzen 3 3100 because I don't have the Ryzen 5 3350. I hadn't even heard of that CPU before. And for the GPU, I went with my RX5500 XT. I think they changed since I first recorded my video because now it's the RX5600 XT, 6GB, but I don't think there's a 6GB variant of the RX5600 XT. So it will be the 5500 with 8GB. That means I have a lower CPU and a lower GPU from what it is actually proposed for the recommended minimum. But that's okay, you'll see. I'm playing at 1080p, lowest settings, no upscaling, and no frame generation. I get an average of 77 FPS. Mind, this is still early in game, but already way over the 60 FPS that they say that you should have with those settings without even upscaling. I have good hope that the game will play well, even if it gets more intense in battle or you get into a bigger settlement or city. And for this kind of game, 60 FPS, it feels a bit too much. You want to be on a budget, you probably can play this game at 30 FPS, no issue. But right now the GPU is at the 95 to 99% of its utilization with 4.6 to 4.8 GB of VRAM out of 8 for utilization. For the CPU, even if it's lower, we are at the 70% of its utilization. The RAM, we are at 6.8 GB of RAM out of 8, starting to be a bit limit if you account for Windows running in the background. Next up, we have the i5-9400 with the GTX 1660 Super. Still with 8GB of RAM, 1080p, lower settings, no upscaling, and no frame gen. We get an average of 79 FPS, 2 more FPS than the RX5500 XT. The GTX 1660 Super is a 6GB card, but even though we only using 4.4GB of VRAM out of 6. The GPU is pegged at 99%, the CPU is in the mid 60 to low 70% of its utilization, and we're using 7 to 7.1GB of RAM. It's still highly playable, frame time, frame graph is all smooth, but we're quite over the 60 FPS that the dev say we're going to get. Even this dragon scene seems to tax a lot the hardware. I didn't reach yet a big city or town. My biggest place is the current settlement of 4-5 character, and the FPS, regardless of where I am so far, didn't go as high as 92 FPS average in non-intense area, and as low as high 60s in more intense area. And finally, we have the A580. I kept the i5-9400 because this is in the proposed minimum requirement and support resizable board, PCI Gen 3. I don't think it will cause much an issue for this card, but you are probably leaving some performance on the table without having a PCI Gen 4. But from what I read, between 3 and 4 for the A580, even the A570, the difference in performance is minuscule. And yes, resizable bar is on. We're playing at 1080p, same, lowest settings, no upscaling, and no frame gen. We got a little boost in FPS. We're now at 82 FPS average, and the A580 is a 8GB VRAM card like the RX5500 XT, but we're only using 5.3GB of VRAM out of 8. The GPU is pegged at 99%, but this time we have the CPU in the high 80s, low 90s% of its utilization. We may have a bottleneck or close to one with this combination of CPU GPU, but it may be due by the RAM limitation. We are using 7.5 out of 8GB of RAM, so Windows only have 500MB to run in the background, and that's what often causes the CPU to run at higher percentage of its utilization. Anyway, regardless on which configuration you have, it all seems to be overshoot from the dev, but I guess it's a good thing. You sure you won't be too low on FPS, it will be highly playable. And for both the RX5500 XT, even if it was recommended to be the RX5600 XT or the A580, since we're not using the entire 8GB of VRAM, you can probably crank up more more texture or whatever settings to maybe even medium. For the 1660 Super, we have a little space left in the VRAM, but you can probably crank some settings also. The CPU can definitely do the job, even can go lower because I was using a Ryzen 3 3100 instead of the Ryzen 5 3350. And for the RAM, 8GB is really the minimum. I will even recommend to 12 or 16GB of RAM to be safe. And that's all I had to say for this game that I completely forgot to post. Thanks for watching, see you on the next one, and subscribe.